Look at a typical agricultural supply chain. When information breaks down at the farm level, the delays ripple upward. In the cocoa sector, persistent gender gaps act exactly like this, as friction points that stall production and warp data. They are severe operational inefficiencies masked as traditional corporate social responsibility issues. Ignoring these gaps requires workarounds. Supply chain managers spend extra cycles validating yields or pushing duplicate communications, which burns thousands of hours a year. Maintaining this disjointed system is getting increasingly expensive. That constant operational bleed is exactly why Equal Origins built the Gender Equity Learning and Innovation Network, or GENLIN. Launching in April 2026, this is a zero-cost 18-month network. It is structured entirely to pull gender equity out of abstract intention and embed it directly into daily practice. Because the root problem is deeply operational, it cannot be fixed with a weekend workshop. Repairing the chain requires sustained structural collaboration. While participation requires absolutely zero financial investment, it is far from free. The actual cost of entry is measured entirely in your team's time, attention, and organizational bandwidth. This two-column diagram compares your options. Left, the cost of inaction. Right, the cost of joining GENLIN. Doing nothing means absorbing compounding data inaccuracies and mounting operational friction. Committing requires 18 months of calendar stays, active resource review, and mandatory thematic participation. Bandwidth is the only real barrier to entry. To make that investment worth the return, you need to identify exactly where you and your team fit within the program architecture before you lock it into your schedule. This decision tree illustrates how GENLIN prevents wasting time on irrelevant information. It starts with a single prompt. What is your primary mandate? Based on your answer, the network splits you into 3 distinct tracks: e-com, sector, or executives. If you choose the wrong path, you risk derailing your team's momentum. An executive sitting through granular field-level tutorials will check out, and a field manager listening to high-level strategy will leave without usable tools. Getting a return on your 18-month time investment requires strictly mapping your exact daily corporate mandate to the correct corresponding track. First, we look at the e-com track. This flowchart branch isolates the inputs, outcomes, and trade-offs for the inside operators, the people entrenched in the daily, field-level work of the supply chain. Your input requires committing to a parallel engagement track. You bring real, messy field experiences to the table for candid exchanges. In return, you secure a structured space to process learnings and achieve internal alignment. The trade-off is steep. This track demands professional vulnerability. If you show up to turn your camera off and passively listen, the model entirely fails. The e-com track exists strictly for active problem-solving. It actively penalizes anyone who treats it like a standard background webinar. Next is the sector practitioner track. This path maps out the inputs, outcomes, and trade-offs for individuals looking to build their gender lens skills and develop tools for the broader industry. Your required input involves actively navigating a dense resource library and consistently attending 60-minute thematic sessions. The outcome is direct access to practical frameworks, training curricula, and rare peer connections. However, the trade-off is the adaptation tax. The provided tools are built for the whole sector, meaning they require significant internal time to adapt to your organization's specific constraints. The network gives your team a massive head start by providing raw materials. The heavy lifting of operational integration remains entirely on your shoulders. Finally, we have the executive track. This maps the inputs, outcomes, and trade-offs for the decision-makers who allocate budgets. Your required input is hyper-focused. You prioritize and attend targeted executive edition sessions. The outcome is the precise, evidence-based business case you need to justify strategic pivots. The trade-off here is accountability. You carry the obligation to actually authorize operational changes based on the data presented. If leadership is unwilling to alter policy based on GENLIN's evidence, enrolling in this specific track is simply a waste of calendar space. The program follows a strict 18-month roadmap. It opens with creating conditions for success and builds methodically toward the Q4 2027 milestone, from the field to the strategy room. Alongside those sessions runs the resource library. Starting in April 2026, research, case studies, and training materials are added continuously to support the broader curriculum, but the actual work happens on the registered discussion boards. This is where participants debate the tools, share their specific hurdles, and collaborate in the weeks between the formal meetings. Showing up to the webinars is only 10% of the process. The curriculum's full value remains completely locked unless you actively utilize this ecosystem between the scheduled thematic dates. To definitively determine if your organization should commit to this 18-month cycle, we use this GENLIN readiness scorecard. Criterion 1. Are you willing to share your operational failures and friction points rather than just reciting your PR successes? Criterion 2. Does your team have the actual capacity to maintain focus and commit continuous bandwidth for the entire year and a half? Criterion 3. Do you possess the internal authority to take the frameworks acquired from the library and actually implement them? If you check those boxes, you are the perfect fit. This network is built specifically for sustainability teams and frustrated executives who want a structured, no-cost space to enact real sector-wide change. Conversely, if your organization is seeking a quick, passive certification, a one-off training module, or a forum where you don't have to speak, avoid this program entirely. Addressing gender equity in the cocoa supply chain has moved far beyond the simple, passive consumption of information. Closing the gaps now requires the exact type of active, structured exchange that GENLIN is built to provide.